Welcome to an Operation Husky map overview, in case there's still anybody interested in these things. I'm sure this will be less informative for the PS4 people who may already have plenty of experience on this map, as this is quite late, busy times, but another reason being, well, I have to say, Husky is not my favorite map. I try to avoid playing it, mainly because of the dogfight, but we'll get there, and this isn't a video all about my opinions of the map, it's about tactics. You'll also notice this is one video to cover both attacking and defending. They are not different enough to warrant separate videos. I'm not even sure I have enough to say to make one video, but let's get into the first stage here. A pretty straightforward capture the flag type thing. 3 pieces of intel that the attackers have to grab and run back to base in the church. There isn't a whole lot I need to say, map-wise, line of sight-wise. On defense, you can challenge that window through this windowsill gap, I guess. The defining feature of the first stage, though, I think, are the tripwire mines that the defenders can grab. The attackers get boxes of Molotovs, which is not as interesting. The tripwires are fun to play around with. It's not like they're a major key of defending strategy. They help you get a few kills, and every kill as a defender buys a little more time, but eventually you run out of them. Anyway, first a couple basics. You can grab 1 per life, or if the one you deploy blows up, it seems like you can go back and grab another, but it isn't worth the trip back to spawn. You cannot trip your own or friendly mines, but you can shoot the mine to make it blow up, even if it was deployed by a teammate, because they're kind of owned by the team, not by an individual. You do get the kills for it, but that also means that when you deploy one and die, it isn't going to despawn, like a bouncing Betty, for example. It will stay on the map until an enemy triggers it, disarms it, or somebody shoots it. That also means that with some extreme talent, you can even deploy trip mines on other trip mines, creating a caterpillar of death. On the topic of disarming, as an attacker, disarming is quick and easy. If you spot a tripwire, just walk up to it to get the option, and disarming is instant. So as for placing these things, I recommend avoiding the super obvious spots, go figure, like the middle of main doorways and these stairs where I often see 3 tripwires all piled up, as if that's helpful. Basically all of the direct entrances to the intel they need to grab. It's pretty predictable. Not that you'll never get kills doing that. All the time people will run right into them because they're new or weren't paying attention or just don't care. But if you want to improve your tripwire placing spots, here are some things to keep in mind. What I would consider a non-obvious spot are the ones that are more towards their side of the map. Attackers aren't as on their guard before they've even approached the objective building. They're usually just running to get back in the fight, so placing more on their side of the map has more of a surprise factor. Outside in the dark is better than the bright indoors. Wires in the main building are really easy to see and diffuse, and generally placing them lower down is better, away from eye level. I'm sure that's intuitive, but I see plenty of eye-level tripwires. Stairs are another helper. Blending in with stairs is much easier than blending in with flat ground. Like this one is pretty easy to see, but right at the base of those stairs, that is near impossible to see. The wire really blends in with the bottom step. And finally, placing them on a decline is the ideal situation, because then you really can't see it coming. For example, on my opening route on this map, I almost always grab one, toss it down on these stairs on the right side, and it's an easy kill every time. People running down here aren't going to see that unless they expect it and specifically check for it. Final thing, you could hold on to a tripwire for the next stage of the map. Nobody's going to be expecting tripwires there, so that's fun, but that's about it for the tripwires. You shouldn't be wasting a whole bunch of time positioning them perfectly. Just put a little thought into where they go, down low, in the dark, around corners, on their side of the map maybe, all of that. As for the rest of defending strategy, my main recommendation is to push up, to be in their spawn, to be in the church. You can often take people by surprise. That red line that you can't pass is really deep in there, so take advantage of that. There's no reason to camp way back on your side right next to the objective, because if you lose that one gunfight, they grab it and they're out of there. Whereas if you lose a gunfight deep in their side, you can respawn and come back to guard the objective by the time they get there. So that's all I'll say. Defending the first stage isn't easy though. As far as attacking goes, well, keep an eye out for the tripwires. Have a speed-oriented class to be running those objectives around, maybe toss some smokes in there, and with a competent team, this is not a difficult objective to take in my experience. That moves us on to the second objective, also not very complicated. It's a hardpoint style objective like the breakout command post and the Neptune bunkers. There's a square room that the attackers need to control to capture. Goes without saying that it'll be a hotspot for grenades and equipment. I wouldn't go without armored, but it's such a great training now that I hardly need to recommend it. As for capture locations, you only have 2 options if you want to be covered from the defenders flooding in. You can be behind the post or right up against their wall, and I would highly recommend against the wall. Sometimes I feel like I'm invisible here, to the point of absurdity, people dropping down and completely ignoring me back here. But even if that doesn't exactly happen, it'll still keep you away from where most grenades are thrown in the back, and gives you some of the best positioning to shoot people as they drop or come around the corner from that tunnel access that the defenders have. There isn't a whole lot of rocket science to this stage of the map either, though. There is that second story tower, but I don't know why you would ever go up here as an attacker unless you want to be a useless sniper who isn't helping your team at all. I guess just be aware that that spot is a thing as a defender. I don't know of any incredible defending lines of sight here. Everything seems pretty intuitive. The overlook on this side, the little window of limited usefulness. The only two things that I found interesting while exploring the map was, one, this bag of olives doesn't have a very well-defined invisible wall around it, so you can crouch inside of it, but that doesn't really help you much. And two, although not exactly practical, as a defender you can run into their zone and enter that two-story building, which is actually considered not out of bounds. You'll still have that red highlighting for a few more seconds, but if you survive that, you can shoot attackers from up here, which is pretty fun, but they're bound to catch on and come back for you. As I said, not exactly practical. What is practical is either staying closer to the objective to be repairing the two walls, or pushing up to take the gunfights to the attackers. Just like stage 1, I enjoy hanging out near the walls on their side. You basically get 2 chances at the gunfight instead of only 1. Well, that was quick, but I don't know what else to tell you that you won't learn after just playing the map a few times. If the attackers fail at either of the first 2 stages, you get this absolutely brutal execution ending animation. My god. However, assuming that objective falls, we come to the third and final stage, being the very unique dogfight sequence. You take to the skies and control a fighter plane, and it just becomes a team deathmatch to 25 kills to decide the game. To cover the basic HUD, the map will obviously show you teammates and enemies, and I imagine most people already know this, but it's even more important now. A red dot with a line above it means that enemy is above you. If the line is below, then they're below you. The same thing applies in regular gameplay, and it's been that way for several years now, so good chance you've picked that up. But here in this 3D flying arena, it's very helpful to locate people. The map will also show you the red borders if you're getting close to the edge of the circular area, so stay away from that. And this altitude bar will show you how close you are to being out of the floor and ceiling boundaries. The other bar on the left is your forward speed, the bar on the right is the heat of your gun. You can pull back on the stick to move slower, making it easier to turn and track enemies, and you can push forward in the same way that you normally sprint to go faster. All the controls are fairly intuitive though. Aside from that, there isn't a whole lot of strategy. It's not like you can stick to the outside or stick to the bottom of the map. As soon as you want to be shooting at someone, you'll be flying towards them because you're in a plane. I generally like to pick someone to pursue, take them out if you can, and then fly quickly to the outer edge, turn around, pick a new target from there, and repeat. That seems to be a bit better of an idea than hanging out in the middle, ready to get chased by some guy who just respawned behind you. There are killstreaks in the planes, and this is where it gets kinda dumb. The Axis defenders get flak guns after a 3 kill streak, or 120 score because you can earn it with assist points, while the Allied attackers get this dumb fighter plane reinforcement thing after an 160 score streak, except it's infinitely worse. The flak guns practically wipe out the entire enemy team, putting the attackers at a major disadvantage that it's hard to come back from, while the Allied streak, which is harder to earn, seems to do nothing at all to help. I have seen the friendly AI planes in the air, so yes, it calls in something, but I have never seen them get a kill. It's almost like they're just decoy planes, which is better than nothing, I guess, but it's not as good as extra lives, and it's nothing compared to the advantage of the easier to earn flak guns streak, so that's annoying. Defenders have a huge advantage here. I understand why both sides don't get flak guns, because only the defenders would have them set up on the ground, but the streaks could easily be balanced better, because the rest of the fighting just comes down to how practiced you are with the aim and the luck with where people respawn. I will say that it felt like I got better as I played more games of this, but I was never consistently good. One game would be an easy 10 kill streak in the plains, and then the next game it would feel like I would get 1 kill, and then there would always be an enemy spawning right behind me and there's nothing I could do to shake them off. Anyway, I don't have any more strategy for you there. Sorry about that. To make this video less meaningless, hopefully, I'll just wrap up with more of why I'm not a huge fan of it, and some constructive how I would fix it. Of course, not saying that I know what everyone would want. Just want to give some input. First of all, I do want to say I appreciate the people working on War Mode. I don't know if that's more of a Raven team than a Sledgehammer team, but anyway, I do love War Mode, and I want to commend them for trying new things. I'm sure it would have been simpler to just have a third objective where you plant plant a bomb on something, and there you go, the map is over. I like the creativity, but at the end of the day, the novelty wears off after 3 to 5 games, and it just isn't fun to me. I can give several reasons for that, one being how impossible it is to come back. You can already tell when the score is 19-14 that the team with 19 is going to win. It just doesn't go any other way. If you're left in a 1v4 or something, you're just not going to win. Whereas in a search and destroy 1v4, there's a very real chance that you clutch that out. That's fun, that's exciting. The dogfighting doesn't have that. You don't feel like you have a whole lot of control over your destiny. Your individual effort very rarely has an effect on if you win or not, aside from the broken flak guns. The win comes down to how potato your team is, combined with being much more likely to win on the Axis side. Another reason that I don't find it very fun, although other people might not care as much about this, is that one of the main goals I have while playing the game these days is to be working on weapon-related challenges, like the reticles, or those 2 new weapon levels with the new weapon camos, or the DLC guns. So anything that takes me out of that, I'm not a huge fan of. Like, same thing with the Neptune Bunker Rush, you're either on a minigun or dying on a beach for most of the time. So Breakout, Griffin, and Intercept are the maps I gravitate towards these days. Also, if there are orders and contracts that focus on getting kills with a certain weapon type, same thing with that. I'd prefer to stay on the ground and not be wasting time. And after saying that, if you're a fan of those things, you might want to say as a counterpoint, well, maybe war isn't for you then, just go play TDM. And, well, yeah, ever since the introduction of Shipment, I've been playing much more of that than war, but I do still like war mode more than playing on the regular maps in this game. I just wish I didn't have to participate in the boring plane part. Enough complaining though. As for what I would do to improve this, honestly, I would just cut those plane lives all the way down to something like 10 and adjust the kill streaks accordingly, and also to be more fair. Maybe they both take 120 score to earn, the flak guns would only take out 3 or so planes, and maybe the reinforcements just adds 3 plane lives back onto your team. That sounds pretty fair. Or if they insist on having those weird AI decoy planes, either make them do something or add more of them, I don't know. But 25 lives is excessive to me. As I said, you can usually tell who's going to win pretty early on, so there's no need to drag it out for that long. It makes me just want to put the controller down and do something else while I wait for that section to end. If there were 10 or even just 6 lives, I'd be much happier to sit through it. But I realize maybe some people out there really love this little plain minigame. Feel free to share your thoughts on it. That's all for Operation Husky though. There's the Allied winning animation just in case you rarely see it, because 80% of the time I imagine you'll be watching the bomber get shot down. Well, I'm looking forward to the next war map. I've heard the leaks about it being set in Africa and all that. Sounds like something I may like more than Husky, but we shall see. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.